Why, hello there, and greetings, my friend. Welcome back to the Red Delta Project podcast and live feed Q&A. Your humble host is always Matt Schifferly, and yes, I am back. I was on a bit of a hiatus for the past several weeks because my weekends were taken up with social events and travel, but nonetheless, I am back. I do try to keep these podcasts and live feed Q&As on a regular basis here on the YouTube channel at 2:30 Mountain Time here in Denver, but not always possible. Sometimes other things are taking more of a top priority for me. But nonetheless, I do try to get other episodes out. Just earlier this week, I put out a mini episode that I did at the gym over at Capra about the top reasons, 4 reasons, I believe, on why you should be training more like a bodybuilder. It was a little bit of a push in the other direction because when I got into fitness, well over 20, almost 30 years ago now, there was a lot of pushback against the ideas of bodybuilding because a lot of stuff in our fitness culture is based on the aspects of bodybuilding. Even back in the day, like in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, if you were an athlete, and you're like, I want to build muscle and strength. And at the time, a lot of coaches might even discourage you from doing that, saying, no, no, you're going to get all muscle bound and slow and everything. But if you were smart enough to realize that building muscle and strength was a key component in your conditioning and performance as an athlete, then the only place you had to turn to for weightlifting advice was basically your local neighborhood bodybuilders or bodybuilding gym. Even if you went to the gym, a lot of the equipment there was kind of based on what pioneers in the world of bodybuilding were all about. The Weider brothers, Arthur Jones, even Mr. Blanking on the name, Nautilus dude. Oh gosh, I should not be blanking this much, but a lot of the machines out there that were invented from Nautilus and stuff were largely about bodybuilding approaches. And it had a lot of good points to it, but it also had some negative drawbacks. So when I started to get in on the scene, a lot of the rhetoric around it was like, oh, you need to train for functional training and functional ability, which was basically recognizing that a lot of classic approaches to strength and conditioning were based on bodybuilding, which was primarily about building muscle and strength, which is great. But if you want to have applicable use of that muscle and strength, you also need stability and mobility or control of your body, if you will. And so that's where the functional training aspect was supposed to come in. And it was almost a little bit of a negative to say, oh, you don't want to train like a bodybuilder, curls are for the girls kind of ideas that were everywhere in our fitness culture. And so it still persists to this day. A lot of memes that have been marketed to us in our fitness culture still persist, even if they're not necessarily true. So the message in that podcast that I did that you can find here on the Red Delta Project YouTube channel or where you get your audio podcast was that there are 4 big things about bodybuilding training that you really do want to adopt when it comes to looking and feeling your best. And I'll leave you to listen to that. But one of the big things was about training more directly for aesthetics. I'm going to be coming out with an episode, a video here on the YouTube channel here later this week on why a lot of times the reason why people struggle to get what they want from their training is because they're subconsciously going after the wrong goals, the wrong objectives. And some of that is due to that negative backlash on bodybuilding stuff, that training for aesthetics, training for the appearance of your body is not a good thing. It's a shallow pursuit. It's vanity. It's egotistical and stuff. And that stigma still exists. But the fact of the matter is, as I address in my latest book, Beautiful Strength, is that if you want to train for the sake of looking better naked, if you want to improve the appearance in the mirror, you want to go much more directly after that. You don't want to just kind of go about this roundabout way of saying, oh, I want to be healthy and I want to be strong and I want to be fit and functional and all that. And that all is good. But if in the back of your mind, you're like, dude, I want to get laid more. I want to have abs. I want to have more self esteem and self respect for my peers and stuff. If that's what you actually want, you should train more directly for that. Say, I want bigger biceps. Well, then you train more directly for biceps. And bodybuilding is much more effective at that than functional or athletic training. Not to say you can't do it with athletic training, but like anything in life, if you know exactly, or more specifically, clarity, what you want, and you adopt habits that go after it more directly, you're going to get it a lot faster. You're going to get it a lot more to a degree that you want, and you're going to maintain it a lot easier without a lot of wasted time, energy, and effort. So don't, uh, be going around circumventing what you really want. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel and stuff for that episode coming out on going after the goal you really want and not getting what I often refer to as goal hijacking, where people are like, well, I'm sure if I pursue this objective, these other objectives will naturally just happen on their own. And they can to some degree, but it's usually a very inefficient way to go about it. But nonetheless, I am here to answer your questions and talk to you, beautiful people here. This is always one of the highlights of my day. I love going through what you want to ask me. So hit me with it. Questions on diet, questions on exercise, questions on your routine. Do you want me to take a look at something that you're doing if you think it's right for you? Come and step into my office, my friend. My couch is here waiting for you. Please do ask your questions. And Anderson, Mr. Anderson, saying suspension straps are enough for Natty to build his maximum natural muscle in his back muscles. Like, are they enough and stuff? And the bottom line, the quick answer is absolutely yes. However, when it comes to you're talking about maximum natural, like maximization, optimization, and stuff, it's very important to recognize that most of us will never come even close to our upper levels of potential. Not even close. Not even close. And we usually look at different exercises and tools and stuff like, okay, is this tool going to help me get as much as I can out of it, or is this tool going or exercise enough to build muscle and strength? And the fact of the matter is that you're never probably ever going to get there. And the reason is simple. It's because it's just too darn hard and costly to do so. When it comes to getting the results that we're after, we want to kind of look at like we're climbing a hill that gets progressively steeper towards the top, like climbing Everest. Most of us can get to base camp with a modest level of fitness. I mean, I'm assuming I've never been to base camp on Everest before, but I've known friends who are like, oh yeah, I was just taking a trip to Nepal the other day, and it's just, oh, what the hell, let's go to base camp. Why not? We got an afternoon to kill kind of thing. It'll be a fun challenge, okay? A lot of folks can do that. However, that last little bit to get to the very top of Everest, there's stories I've read and stuff, and it's like, that is a really hard last several hundred meters to do. And the same as with your maximum potential. When it comes to accessing your ability to build muscle and strength and health and all these sorts of things, you can get there with very modest means, very basic exercises that are done at a very low level. But the more you try to explore the upper echelons of your potential, know that it's going to cost you dearly to do that. And because it's so hard, it's not worthwhile for most individuals. I know for me, absolutely not worthwhile. I am leaving tons of progress on the table in all aspects of my health and fitness. I know I will never maximize or optimize most anything for the simple reason that it's just not worth it. It's just not worth the cost for me to do so. But instead, the approach that I use here at Red Delta Project is not about getting 100% of your potential. It's what are the 20% amount of work that we can do that gets you 80% of your potential. The Pareto principle there. I'm not interested in maximizing or optimizing anything. So if you're asking me about building up your back to the maximum ability, can suspension straps do it? Yes. But you're going to be a lot better off using many tools. You're going to be better off using many exercises. You're going to be better off having a team of people working with you. You're going to be better off using a lot of different strategies and having constant assessment of your training and blood work and 100 other things. Now, if that seems like, it's like, gosh, that seems like it's a lot of overkill. It's like, well, that's what we're looking at getting our maximum. But it shouldn't be discouraging. It should be liberating to know that you always have a lot of potential that is not being tapped into. You always have a lot of ability that you're not able to get. And 9 times out of 10, the things that are limiting you are not the equipment you're using or the exercise you're using. Here's the quick, easy litmus test: is can you go to higher levels of resistance with a tool? Because when it comes to strength training in particular, the only thing that our tools and our techniques afford us is progressive resistance. So when people come to me and they're like, "Am I limited with this?" And I'm like, "Okay, how many one-arm handstands are you doing, or handstand push-ups? How many single arm pull-ups are you doing on suspension straps?" You're like, "Well, I can't do that." It's like, okay, good. Then the tool isn't a limitation anymore. Right? If you have some dumbbells in your basement, for example, you're like, okay, can I build muscle with these dumbbells? And I look at it, I'm like, they go up to 15 pounds, dude. Like, are you gonna be able to progressively be able to keep working your chest and your back to a high degree with those 15-pound dumbbells? And you're like, yeah, for a bit, I guess I could get really creative, but to be honest with you, I'm kind of limited by my equipment because I can't just get that much resistance on the muscle. Okay, then in that case, you're limited. But when it comes to things like your suspension straps, oh yeah, how many single arm rows can you do with your feet close together and your legs straight out with them up on a weight bench? To this day, I have yet to find anybody who can actually do it. It's very, very hard. So, are you limited by your tools? No, but you're probably going to be limited by other things like your skill, your technique, your proficiency, other lifestyle habits. I'm going off on a tangent here, but it's key to understand these things about we're afraid of limitations, things that are holding us back. And very rarely is our program, our exercises, or our tools the limiting factor. Most of the time, the limiting factor is us. What's my discipline? What's my proficiency? What am I bringing to the exercise versus what is the exercise bringing to me? And almost always, with the exception of like 15-pound dumbbells and you're trying to deadlift or something, usually it's the limiting factor is you rather than the equipment itself. And so the more you learn to improve proficiency and you work on your technique and you work on your focus and your discipline and things like that, the more you overcome those personal limitations. All right, I'm off my soapbox now. So good question there, Anderson. But oh yeah, you can definitely build great results with just suspension straps. Chris, it's good to see you. How can I help ease a stiff, painful neck? No, this is one I've kind of been having an issue with myself. Lots of times, remember that stiffness, tightness, and soreness in a joint, like our neck and stuff, isn't actually about that area. It's other areas that influence how force is going through that area. The one of the biggest wake up calls I ever got one time when I went to a chiropractor years ago, and I'd been having this lower back, almost hip issue for years. Right? It didn't matter. I stretched it and worked on my hips and worked on my back. Well, no matter what I did, it was always a recurring issue. And then finally, he took an X-ray, which I really appreciate. It's like, let's actually get eyes on this situation here. And he's like, "Yep, just as I thought. Your neck's out of alignment. That's why your back hurts." Like, you mean my neck is a no, my problem's with my back. It's like it's all connected, and that's a lot of athletic trainers, chiropractors, and stuff. They understand this stuff. It's like, oh yeah, because you got this cramp in your hand, it's because you've got a toothache or something. It's all connected. So when it comes to your neck, what you want to do, what I encourage you to do, is take a photo of yourself standing sideways, and try not to do like the classic idea of when people are like, okay, stand up straight, and then you have perfect posture, right? Well, that's usually not how you stand. Most of us are like this all day, on our phone, and we're driving to work and our computers and stuff. And a lot of times we have, I've heard this referred to as nerd neck, classic kyphosis of the shoulders, rounding forward. And because the shoulders are forward, our neck is forward, and the neck is forward, the head is forward, and we're constantly working the back of our neck to hold our head up like this. And so a lot of times we're like, okay, I got to work my neck, I got to ease my neck and stuff. So we're like wrenching our neck back and we're working against the shoulders. And that's only going to make things worse, if not even just a tiny bit better. So a lot of times it's a lack of activation in the back and your shoulders back, lifting your chest up. And then when your shoulders are back, your head just pulls right back, nice and easy. And a lot of times issues in the back are actually issues in your hips because you've got a little bit of lordosis where your hips are curling forward, your anterior tilt. So a lot of times neck issues are actually hamstring issues, glutes and hamstrings. So here's what I would recommend for you is make sure you're addressing your extension or posterior chain, hip bridges, kettlebell swings, deadlifts, that sort of thing. If you're ever like, oh, but deadlifts and kettlebell swings hurt my back, that's definitely a sign we're addressing something that needs to be worked. I'm not saying do it, despite the pain. I'm saying it's exposing a weakness that is holding you back, and it's almost assuredly hurting your neck by going up your chain. So check out the videos that I have on the channel. If you just search hip bridge, or of course in my latest books, Beautiful Strength, Grind Style Calisthenics, I go into this stuff a lot because a lot of our ability to look our best is based on posture and body language. It doesn't matter how much muscle you build or how much fat you lose. If your posture sucks, you still look like a frumpy old low insecure bum. Trust me, I know. That's the way I've been for many years before I learned this stuff. So get your extension chain working. Make sure your lats are on. Make sure you're getting your traps. Warm up before every exercise with some rear flies on bands or straps or something, and get those shoulders back. And then your head will come back and your neck there. Again, I'm assuming this is all a postural thing. I don't know. Maybe you've got a nerve issue. Maybe you got a pinched nerve. Maybe you got 100 things. That's the thing with joints is it's hard to get an assessment on anything without getting hands-on assessment. And that's why when I went to my chiropractor and I got that x-ray, I'm like, thank you. Someone who's finally going to actually see what is going on. And you just put up the x-ray and he's like, yep, see how your neck does that? Yeah, it shouldn't do that. We're going to fix that. And it was very enlightening. It wasn't like, well, it could be this, it could be that. You might be doing this wrong, and you might want to strengthen. It was like a mechanic, lifting up the hood, and there's a belt that's snapped in half, and he's like, yep, there's your problem right there. Clarity, my friends. The more clarity you have, the more effective you are in your training. So get your posture dialed in, because that's always something we need to work on. But if it really persists, see if you can get a chiropractic x-ray or assessment on that sort of thing. Brandon's coming on saying, what would happen? Would you happen to have any tips on how to begin training false grips on the rings? Yeah, it's largely down to progressive calisthenics theory, where you'll have your false grip, where you're holding on the rings kind of thing, and your feet are on the ground. So that way you can adjust the weight distribution between your feet and your hands, because that's how progressive calisthenics works. Is it's a form of weightlifting where you shift your weight from one part of your body to the other. That's how you add weight with calisthenics. And so what you want to do is start off very gentle, where you're holding onto the rings, false grip, and then you're gradually taking weight off your feet over time. You can do that with higher rings or just simply picking up your feet a little bit more. You can go flat foot, then you're on your toes. You go on one foot on your toes and stuff. So you're progressively adding weight to your hands by removing it from your feet. And then once you can hold comfortably in the false grip with your feet off the ground, your full body weight, then you can work the false grip into things like your muscle ups and other techniques that you want to use it. But that's usually how we teach it over at Capra, is start with more weight on the feet and then add it to the hands over time. Biogazard. It's a cool name. Good avatar there. Man, I don't like calorie counting. What else can I do to maintain and lose weight? Yeah, I don't like calorie counting either for several reasons. Largely because it's really impractical for a lot of folks and an estimated guess at best. Because always remember that your ability to manage body fat levels is about calorie balance. It's not calorie intake. It's not calorie expenditure. It's the relationship between the two. If you burn 5,000 calories a day and you eat 5,000 calories a day, that has the exact same effect on your body fat levels as if you're burning 1,800 a day and eating 1,800 a day. And usually we get caught up thinking like, I'm doing all this cardio, I'm doing all this exercise, how come I'm not losing weight? Because you're not paying attention to the other side of the equation, or vice versa. And calorie balance is really hard to do accurately. It's very hard, largely because a lot of our calorie expenditure is not stuff we're consciously doing. We usually think it's about diet and exercise. No, it's about everything about being human. And you have NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is a massive influence to your overall energy expenditure. And that's largely running on subconscious autopilot. You're not aware of it. You can't really control it to a large degree. And of course, diet is half of the equation, but it's really hard to manage that as well. And side effect sometimes of people who really get into calorie counting, ironically enough, is they gravitate a lot more towards more processed, ultra processed foods. And that's because it's easier to count and manage calorie intake with processed foods than natural foods, which is, I know it's a bit of ironic, but I got a box of granola bars in my cupboard there, and that those granola bars are made by machines in a factory and everything. So each bar weighs the same and it has the same thing. So you can very confidently look at the label on a granola bar and be like, it's 130 calories. Chances are it's very close to 130 calories. But this morning, for lunch today, I had a cheeseburger. Now, I just took some ground beef, made it into a patty. How big is that patty? How much does it weigh? How much of that is fat? How much of it is protein? I don't know. This is when you get into more natural foods and the serving size is varied, right? You're like, what the hell does that mean? It's like when you go to a restaurant and you have a menu and it says market price. It's like, okay, thanks for nothing. It doesn't tell me anything, right? Plus, I had some cheese and some vegetables on it, and had some bread, and all of it was like me cutting up stuff in a much more natural, wholesome, whole foody kind of style cheeseburger. Your guess is as good as mine as how many calories are in that thing. Like, I don't know. I have no idea how much protein it was. I don't know what calories there were in that. Yeah, it's like I just put some stuff on a pan. I'm like, yeah, that sounds about the right size. So calorie counting can be a real pain in the neck. It can be useful, especially to establish more awareness of things. But you're right, it can be very, very rough. And it can even lead you astray too, where people are like, oh, yes, I ate exactly 2,372 calories today. I'm like, I guarantee you're not that accurate. At best, you're within a few 100-calorie ballpark either way kind of thing. So here's what I do instead to get to practical application. Just have a stable diet to begin with. And use my 3P strategy. You have your regular meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I usually have 2 breakfasts just because that's how my lifestyle is. So you have regular meal times. When I'm having lunch and dinner and stuff, plant protein and portion control. I eat enough to satisfy myself, not to be full. I have a very stable diet. That's all you need. Because when we're making a change in our body fat levels, we don't need to know how many calories we're eating, nor do we need to know how many we're burning. You just need a change in those numbers. You just need a change in that. So if, like, for example, I was in the Northeast visiting the girlfriend, and my energy expenditure plummeted, largely because I'm hanging out with a girlfriend. I'm not going on bike rides and stuff, but I also had a couple of hip injuries that left me on the couch largely. So I know I'm burning a lot less calories than normal. What's the number? I don't know. I don't know what the number was. I just know it was lower. Okay. And that's all you need to know. Same thing with diet. I was also fairly consistent with my diet, but was drinking a bit as well. So my calorie numbers were also a bit higher. How much higher? Why? It doesn't matter. All I know is I was eating more and moving less than I normally do. And predictably, when I came back, I could just feel it. Like I'd see it in my face. I did a video the day I get back. I'm like, yep, I definitely have some softness in the face. I'm a little bit, body fat level went up a little bit on that vacation. It's no big deal. I fully expected that. I'm like, yeah, you're eating more and moving less. Of course, you're going to get a little body fat. But I also knew, okay, well, I come back and eat less and move more than what I normally do and taking care of it. It doesn't need to be a number. It just needs to be more or less than what is normal. And so if you have that baseline of your diet and baseline of your activity level, roughly, it doesn't need to be like exact, but if you have that rough baseline and then you really make it go up or down or make a change that's very noticeable, you create a delta, right? That's what delta is. Then you're like, yeah, I know I'm in a caloric deficit. I know I'm moving and burning more than I normally do. I know I'm eating less than I normally do. And that's all that's really necessary. You don't need to count a thing. AJ. Hey, a good friend named AJ. Good to hear from you, my friend. Matt, I got the isoflex and started on the Promethean deadlift, bicep curl, and shoulder press. Very good routine. Yes. Do you think that covers all? The one lift I'm worried about not doing is seated back extension. You got that on the deadlift. Remember, it's not about the exercises, my friends. It's about the chains, the fundamental tension chains you're working. Are you getting tension in the muscle? I don't care what exercise you're doing. I don't care what tools you're using. Isometric bands, free weights, doesn't really matter. Your body doesn't care what you're doing or whether or not it's a certain tool or whatever. It just cares about time and tension when it comes to building muscles. So your deadlift, as well as your bicep curl to a degree, because you're pulling backwards a little bit with your whole body when you're doing an isometric bicep curl, you're using your extension chain. That's everything on your backside for both of those. So you're more than covered. Just make sure you're engaging those muscles. Because remember, your exercises do not tell your muscles to contract. You do. The exercise is just the application for it. And that's why you want to make sure that you are proactively, consciously making the muscles engage. And especially important and effective when it comes to isometric training. So yeah, you're covered is the bottom line. Don't worry about that sort of thing. And yeah, that's a very good, well-rounded plan. I personally like to do a bent over row instead of the deadlift because you're getting extension on that plus more pull chain. So he's getting more in your pulling as well. The Jefferson deadlift, so that's a little bit more squatting style. So it's more in the quads and the glutes and stuff in many regards. And the lower chest press type. So it's not a shoulder press up here, but lower because that gets your pecs more, but it's still getting your triceps and shoulders better. Usually bar about neck height for that is pretty good, but play around with it and see what works for you. That's my version of the Promethean. I wrote an article for Dragon Door about those 3 exercises and what I would do if I only had a limited amount that I could do for isometrics, because that's one of the big mistakes people make, well, with training in general, but especially with isometrics, is that there's 1,000,001 exercises you can do with isometrics. It's very versatile, but it doesn't mean you should do most of them. Chances are you're going to get the bulk of all of your progress, again, 80% of progress from 20% of inputs, from roughly 4 or 5 exercises. So those 3 right there will cover a lot of base right there. So you don't need a lot of exercises. You don't need to do a whole lot. 3 in a workout is pretty darn good. Filthy llama is my left and right arm have different tension when I do a push-up. Yep. And I do have imbalances that I've been trying to fix. How do I deal with it effectively? Well, the fact that you're aware of it right there is like 80% of it right there, Mr. Llama, that you're aware of it. I usually tell people when they're dealing with imbalances, get a video recording of yourself doing the exercise, because that way you can see if there's any structural things that are partially to blame. You know, when you do your push-ups, is one shoulder protracted more than the other? Are you leaning to the side? Lots of times that's very much the case where you're doing a push-up and it's like, oh, one arm is in more because that's where your weight is and the other one is out a little bit. Be a technician. Be very, very picky about the details. Look at that video, make a note of it in your workout log of, okay, this is what's going on, and then try to fix those. And if you don't see it right away, take a note if it is happening later in the set. So you could have perfect form during your push-ups, but after 9 reps, then your shoulder starts creaking out or your elbow starts winging out or something like that. Look at yourself in video. That's going to tell you a lot right there. My man Joseph coming on in. So Matt, I did a short leg workout last night. I'm visiting cousins, so I did bodyweight squats for a minute. I did it 15 squats, 15 isometric, 10 squats, 10-second ice. Oh yeah, 5 squats. Will this build bigger legs? Damned if I know. Because remember, it's the results that we get from our training are not about our routine. It's about achieving a fundamental stimulus, an objective. So in the case of building bigger legs, bigger muscles, are you challenging your work capacity there, Joseph? Are you getting your muscles to that point where they are screaming at you to stop? Are you pushing them close to failure? That will tell you. That's how you assess everything. That's a fundamental approach, my friends, is everything about your training and, well, fitness habits especially, depend on, do you achieve a fundamental objective to a pretty good degree on a consistent basis? That's what determines its effectiveness. It's not about sets and reps. It's not about whether you do this exercise or that exercise. It's not about frequency and all that stuff. Those things are important, but only to the degree that they help you achieve that fundamental objective. And there's difference and nuance with people. It's like, my man was asking about, building up his back with suspension straps. Well, okay, test it and see. You're trying to build up your back. So are you able to get a good amount of tension and challenge the work capacity in your back muscles with the straps? Now, if you did that with straps and you're like me, and you're like, oh yeah, I can work my back way harder with suspension straps than bent over rows, well, then you do it with the suspension straps because it's helping you achieve your fundamental objective. But you could be the opposite. You could say, oh, I could do it so much easier on cable machines or bands or whatever, right? It's like I do it this way, and I can push myself so much more towards failure. I can get so much more tension in the muscle. Like, well, then there you go. That's the thing that's going to be best for you. Because who cares what works? It's not about what works. It's what works best for you, my friends. Go after those fundamental objectives. That's the thing that makes your training effective. That's what you pursue, and that's what you base all of your decisions off of as well. So when we're looking at different programs and ideas and stuff, the question is always, what is the objective I need for the goal I want? And how well is this helping me do that? And that will basically answer all your questions you need to know about effective training and what's best for you. Juan Carlo, Imperial. Should I bow? If you're Imperial, makes it sound Star Wars, part of the Rebel Alliance. Maybe we shouldn't be having this conversation. But anyway, he says, I do 2 to 3 sets of compounds and 1 to 2 for isolations. Enough. Any tips for shift workers in terms of training? Very good. So yeah, that's a very standard way of going about it there, Juan, where couple of 2 to 3 sets. 2 to 3 is that number that is a good baseline most of the time. Like in so many things in fitness, it's like 2 to 3. How many times a week should you work a muscle group? 2 to 3 times. How many exercises? 2 to 3 exercises. How many sets? 2 to 3 sets. How many days off? 2 to 3. How many meals should I eat? 2 to 3. How many ingredients and foodstuffs? 2 to 3. 2 to 3 is like this good general rule of thumb that'll get you in a pretty good ballpark of everything you need to do most of the time. Of course, color outside the lines if it helps you achieve the objective better. But yeah, that's pretty good. That's really, really good. Shift workers, that's a tough one there. And it depends on personalities too. Some folks have a circadian rhythm that is really well adapted shift work. They're night owls and they can be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and working great at 3 a.m. Guys like me, past 10 o'clock at night, I'm done. I'm sorry, I can't pull an all-nighter to save my life in college. I think I pulled one all-nighter my entire college career because I knew for me inherently, it's like past 10:30 at night, I can't do anything worthwhile in my mind. So it depends on how well adapt you are at it. Some people, they're just not well adapt at it. And it's good to know these things about yourself. Like I know, in my world as a coach and a trainer, I've had lots of jobs that have required me to wake up early. I've had gym jobs where I needed to be smiling and putting on a happy face at 4 a.m., at 5 a.m. Okay, everybody, let's go. Time for a workout. That is so not me. I can't tell you how much caffeine I've needed to ingest in order to get through those mornings. And, people are like, you'll get used to it. No, it's not good for me. I did it for years. It was never good. I was always getting sick more, injured more. My performance was worse. Whenever I would get a break or my shift would change and I'd get to sleep in more, always better, 100%, without question. So you need to understand these things about you there, Juan. Are you well adept at, or is it just something that you're better off trying to go with a different shift during the day? And as always, work with what you got. If you're going into a workout and you are dragging, keep the work low. Keep your volume low. You're not working out to exhaust yourself. You're already exhausted from your work. Just do a couple of good exercises, 2 to 3 good hard exercises, 2 to 3 sets, maybe even less if you're really not feeling it, and be done with it. Less work, more recovery is basically the idea. Make sure you're eating well too. Keep those calories coming in. Biscuit Crusader. I love that. That is awesome, man. Been struggling with press ups recently. How can I structure a plan to increase them? So, whenever we're looking at a performance issue, like I can't seem to do the thing that I'm struggling with, Grease the Groove is always kind of a good way to do that, which is basically just a rebranded way of saying practice more. Really, what it boils down to. Practice the thing more, do it more. So, do it in a way that it's not exhausting you. And so if you're like, I'm good for 3 press ups, for example, then it's like, okay, practice 1 or 2. Stay relatively fresh. Don't fatigue yourself out. Practice it, every day, a couple times a day, 2 to 3 times a day. Right? Get more practice. Get more comfortable with it, and that will help you with that, because a lot of times performance is about proficiency, and uh, much of the time proficient just practice. We just need more practice. If someone's like, I'm struggling with pull-ups, how often do you do them? Once every so often. No. I knew a guy one time, he's like, I'm always sucking at pull-ups. I hate doing them. I don't like doing them. I'm like, all right, for the next month, you're doing nothing but pull-ups for your back workout. He's like, what about no pull-ups? That's the only exercise you are allowed to do for your back for the next month. And at first, it's just, oh, Jesus, kind of sucks. By the end of the month, he's like, dude, I'm like totally addicted to pull-ups now. My numbers are through the roof, and I can do them like a Marine. This is awesome. It's like, yeah, you just need more practice. You just need a lot more at it. So unless you've got something specific that's holding you back, like, oh, my grip is weak or something, but even then, 9 times out of 10, that stuff is fixed by more practice. So get more practice there, Biscuit Crusader. That will probably just do you right there. Christopher coming on in saying, Matt, do you ever done landmine training with a barbell? Yeah. So I used to train at an athletic based kind of gym. Their whole idea was train like an athlete and stuff. And the head coach, the owner of the gym, was a big fan of the landmine stuff. I've always struggled to get much out of it. I've always done it, and I'm like, I don't know really where this is going to have much carryover, honestly. I don't see this as being much of a fundamental. It's fun, it's really good, but even then, whenever I was using the landmine, I was very fundamental about my movements, single arm presses, barbell rows, that sort of thing. But a lot of the stuff where you're going back and forth and over and up, that's, sometimes I'll ask myself when I'm doing exercises in a class, that was because that was the structure of it. It's like, here are the exercises you're going to give your clients. It wasn't up to me. And sometimes I look at stuff that people do, and I'm like, if you never did it, would you miss it? If you never did that weird cockamamie exercise, would you miss it? And that's something we need to be aware of, because we want to make sure that what we're doing in the gym is having a pretty good influential contribution to our goals. So if we didn't do something, we would really be like, oh man, now that I've got this injury or whatever, like I can't do this exercise, like I can totally feel like how my body doesn't feel as good, my performance is down, I don't look as good, and my shoulders are smaller, whatever. Like if you got rid of an exercise, there should be a lot of detrimental, like, oh man, that sucks. But if you miss it, if you get rid of it and you're like, I don't really notice anything, well, it's not really doing you much good. And that was my experience anyway with the landmine. Is I haven't done it since then, since leaving that gym over, and it's like, don't miss it at all. It wasn't like it felt like it did a whole lot for me. And even then, a lot of the stuff I would be like, okay, yeah, this can work, but honestly, I think I'm better off with a dumbbell because it's more direct against gravity or something. That's my experience. Take it for what it's worth, which is honestly not a heck of a lot because it's just my experience. If you're like, dude, it's totally transforming my core. I love how this feels. It's making me play so much better basketball or whatever. Well, then there you go on that feedback there. But yeah, we're looking for stuff that makes a noticeable impact. This idea of like small things add up over time. Yeah, well, big things add up a lot faster. And the stuff that's going to matter the most is the stuff where we start to do it even a little bit and we're like, whoa, did that make a difference? Wow, that's so much better. Those things are few and far between, but they are out there. And those are the things that are going to be the most worthwhile. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Thanks everybody for coming on in. Tips for bicep activation. Yeah, I usually measure the effectiveness of my workout by the muscle pain I feel, but my biceps are pretty hard to quote hit, get to activate and burn until I feel that pain. So straight arms are where you want to look at it. Like a lot of us, we can get our biceps working here, but not straight. Okay, so sometimes we're getting our arms straight and the bicep just goes bleh, kind of thing. So practice engaging your biceps when you're hanging from an overhead bar. That's usually a little bit harder. So if you can't do that, just with your arms straight out, rowing, against rings or something, and even just standing, just practicing engagement there, pushing your hands against a wall with a straight arm, keeping your biceps tight. Make sure you're setting the tension in your biceps proactively when you're doing things. Don't just assume the exercise is going to tell your muscles to engage properly. You make sure you're engaging it properly. And also make sure that you've got the other muscles in the chain working too. A lot of times, a inability to engage and work the biceps properly is actually back engagement. Because with chain training theory, you can only work a muscle as well as the other muscles adjacent to it that are engaging. A lot of us have trouble purposely using our lats and our traps and everything else on the backside. So if you're doing pull-ups or rows and you're not really feeling it in your back, you're not going to feel it that much in your biceps either. So make sure you are working your back muscles to a high degree. Don't isolate, integrate. The more you get everything else working, the more your biceps will work as well. But definitely the straight arm stuff. That's why in the calisthenics world, a lot of times people are like, oh, straight arm strength is so great. It has its value, absolutely. But a lot of the reason why people love straight arm strength is because they're finally engaging their muscles in an elongated position, which helps with mobility, stability, and yes, strength and building muscle too. Crash coming on in like a bat out of hell. Matt, what do you think about cluster training for hypertrophy? It seems to work very well for me. Well, then there's your answer. I'm asking because I rarely see people using this approach in the gym. Can you elaborate on that there, Crash, what you're doing? Because I've heard of different types of cluster training. Basically, just another word of like supersets and stuff from what I've experienced. But let me know kind of an example of what you're talking about. But yeah, it's like, who cares what I think about it? Dude, if you're doing something and it's working, stay on it. Great. But once again, you can assess the validity of everything based on whether or not it's helping you achieve a fundamental objective. So it seems to work very well. Well, what are your objectives? What are you trying to accomplish? What are you trying to get out of it? Let me know down below. And Joseph saying, Matt, work my legs harder. I did leg workout one time. Oh, I got that. Oh no, I didn't get this one. Sounded like the first one you did, Joseph. I did leg workout one time with 2 sets of box step ups, 1 set of body weight squats, lunges, 1 minute iso wall set. Were sore for 4 days. Remember, my friends, though, don't let soreness be a guide for how effective something is. You can be sore as hell from something that hardly has any effect on your musculature. I've been getting a lot of therapeutic work over here at Denver Sports and Recovery. Shout out to Hannah, who's been treating me like a human pincushion with dry needling. The first time she took her needles to me in my quads, my legs felt like I'd run a marathon the next day. It's like my quads are so sore. And it wasn't like a beat up sore, like they legitimately felt like they worked out. But I knew it's like, well, they're sore, but that doesn't mean I'm going to get bigger, stronger leg muscles. It's because of the inflammation from the response of the dry needling. So soreness is a correlation than causation on sorts of things. It can be satisfying and fun, but if you don't have soreness, doesn't matter. If you do have soreness, maybe it matters. Probably not though. It's usually just a side effect of things. It doesn't necessarily mean your workout was effective. Remember, you get results from effective workouts. You get sore from novel workouts. Just do something new, just something different. And that's what soreness is. But I know you know that, Joseph, because I've been mentioning it many times over the years, but I just wanted to mention it to everyone else. But Alexen, it's good to see you. Is metabolic stress debunked or still a thing? I've heard mechanical stress is what stimulates muscle growth, not metabolic stress. Yeah, largely you're right. It's still, I mean, as much as we're trying to nail down a straight up cause of muscle growth, there's still a lot we don't really know. There's still a lot we're basing on correlation. Uh, Basically, the science that I've come across and the experts that I follow have largely stated that pushing yourself close to failure, aka challenging your work capacity, is what stimulates it. Now, you do want to make sure that you are challenging your muscular work capacity, not just your work capacity as a whole. If you're doing, an exercise, let's say push-ups, and you just done a series of hill sprints and got on the aerodyne and did 100 burpees and stuff, and you go into those push-ups and you're like, okay, God, I am just a ragdoll. I am so tired. Like I could barely lift my arms. And then you go do your push-ups. You get like 8 push-ups. You're hitting quote failure, but it's not the failure of the actual muscle tissue. It's just everything else is tired in your system. So there's your metabolic stress. So yeah, it is largely the mechanical stress for sure. But that's not to say that the metabolic stress doesn't have something to do with it. Remember that it's not black and white. A lot of things do have an influence, but the question that we understand from a fundamental perspective is that, yeah, there are a million things that quote work. But the real question is how much influence does it have over that ability to achieve a fundamental objective? And that's where we often go astray. It's like, okay, I'm doing this thing. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of an example, but I'm just drawing a blank at the moment. Uh, okay, let's say like working out first thing in the morning, right? Um, Working out first thing in the morning, hormone profile, you get a bigger spike in testosterone from compound lifts. I mean, I'm largely making this up, but you hear this sort of thing come up every once in a while of like trying to optimize things and stuff. It's like, could it be technically true? Yes. Does it actually matter though in the results? Because this happens a lot in fitness and life in general, where someone will latch on to a small, tiny little influence, which is technically true. Like, do you have a big spike in testosterone from a compound lift? Yes. Does it matter for growth and muscle, though? The science has shown not really. But we often get sidetracked into thinking, well, if this thing is true, then that's what I need to do. We just think about, is it right or not? Is it true or false? And the real question we should be asking is, yeah, but how much influence does it have over the result? Like, I don't care about a truth about a mechanical thing like, oh, if you eat that ice cream cone, you're going to store it as fat. Whoop-de-doo. Like I care. Doesn't really matter, right? Could it be storing as fat? Probably, yeah. Does it matter for my body fat levels and stuff? Not really, no. Because it is still about calorie balance. So if it's a small, tiny, trivial influence, then it's not something I need to worry about. I'm just going to enjoy my ice cream. So we usually think of, oh, this has been proven to be true, and we think I need to follow that or I need to do this thing. So they might say, oh, metabolic stress is definitely linked to muscle growth. Yes, but how much of a role does it play? A tiny, little, minuscule, insignificant role, but it is true. It's like, well, then I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to exhaust myself with 100 burpees before I do pull-ups because it's a high cost to low return type of scenario. And largely your success comes from the efficiency and worthwhile aspect of things, not whether or not something's effective. You can give me this like, oh man, we've got this new infusion and it's going to make you 6 inches taller and jacked as all hell and live to be 120 and it's going to make all your dreams come true. It's like, oh wow, oh yeah, it's $30,000 a month, no insurance covers it, you're going to be constantly nauseous, you're going to be only able to sleep 5 hours a night, and it's a 6 hour a day commitment. No, no, I'm not doing it. But it's so effective. Who cares? We don't care what's effective. We care what's worthwhile in life and fitness. So we have to look at something not as does it work, does it not work, but how much of an influence is it towards your fundamental objectives? And that's what we want to base our decisions off of. John Walsh, following up. Thank you much, John. I'm doing concentration curls, ladder sets, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, Yeah, 34 cents reps. Damn, man. At 5.2 kilograms as I progress. Should I reduce reps as I increase weight? Well, you're going to have to. You're going to have to, my friend. As you increase weight, your body's not going to let you do more reps. So that's a double progression. You have a weight and the reps increase, and then you add the weight and the reps go down. And your reps increase and you add weight and you ladder your way on up. So yeah, of course you're going to have to do that. But it's always about, again, what's your fundamental objective? Are you going for strength? Are you going for hypertrophy? Are you going for muscular endurance? That's what you want to base your programming off of, is what is the objective. Because if you're going after strength, you want to keep the weight relatively high and the reps low, so you're producing more muscle tension. That's what strength is. If you're going for endurance, you want to do the opposite. So you want to keep the weight relatively low and the reps higher. So you're really challenging your stamina. And then, of course, for hypertrophy, you want to have a combination of the two, so you're challenging your work capacity. That's what you want to base your programming off of. What is the objective? So Joseph's following up saying, should I work my legs until I'm struggling to do another squat? I do not want sore legs for 4 days, right, about soreness, but legs are tough to work, so I want to see what works for me. Yeah, the thing with legs is they are really hard to work to a high degree. This is why a lot of people struggle to build up their legs, especially as they get older. You hear that a lot of times, like bodybuilders towards the end of their career, and they're like, yeah, they look great, but boy, the waist down, they've definitely lost a step there. And it's because it's just, they're so strong and they're so resilient and they're so tough that it's really hard to push them that hard. So with what you're doing there, Joseph, you don't need to push till you can't do another squat, but you do want to push pretty well into that red zone. And for legs, that usually means pushing further than you think. Usually it's like, okay, I hit my limit. Like, no, you got another 6 reps there for sure. So you could probably go more. Soreness, yeah, I know it sucks to be sore, but always remember that your body adapts to the metabolic demand and the mechanical stress of soreness real fast. You can have a workout that leaves you so sore you can barely climb stairs the next day. You do the same workout later that week, very little soreness at all. So it's very temporary, any sort of soreness. It's not like it's going to always make you sore. It's chances are you're rarely going to get sore beyond that point. How do I lose weight without moving? I'm assuming more or eating less. Well, you got to have more calories going out and less going in, or a combination of the two. There's just no two ways about it. There's no way about it. I mean, you can change the calorie density of your food. So you're going with less calorically dense food. Usually that means really ramping up your vegetable intake, a lot more fruits and vegetables, so it's less calorie dense. So your volume of food that you're eating is the same or even more, but your caloric intake is lower. So you don't have to necessarily eat less, but you do need to eat less calories, and without moving more. Yeah, okay, so your caloric expenditure is largely going to be static. So you got to go after it with the dietary standpoint. The other thing I would say, though, is look at liquid calories. Usually when people are looking to decrease caloric intake, I usually recommend go after the liquid calories first. Don't even look at what you're eating, but what you're drinking, because you can consume so many calories in liquid form very easily. And it's also the easiest form of calories to hack out. If you've got, like, let's say you go and you hit like the local coffee shop, Mappo, Fracco, Latte, pumpkin spice, 3 shots of whipped cream and lard Mappuccino for breakfast. Then you've got a couple of regular high test sodas at night, and then you have a few beers with dinner. Dude, if you cut most of that stuff out, you're cutting back 100, if not well over 1,000 calories easy with just the drinking stuff. Don't even touch the diet. So go after the liquid stuff. And yes, that even includes things like the smoothies at the fitness bar and stuff like that, because calories are really dense in liquid form, very dense in liquid form. So if you're getting a good amount of calories in liquid form, go after those. That's where I would go after. Angelo, oh, it's good to see you, my friend. Man, I train full body calisthenics. What exercises can I do for my posterior chain? Bridges seem too easy. Well, you do harder bridges. Now, for me, I don't do the classic back bending bridges. I do hip bridges in beautiful strength and things like that because it's much more hip focused. It's much more along the lines of what you kind of do with a deadlift motion, where your back is stable, but you're moving through your hips. The seated hip bridges, you can progress very easily, where you're going from table version, legs are straighter, legs are all the way out straight. Then you have cross ankle, then you have single leg, then you have elevated single leg. So usually this is one of those things that I need to see because there's a lot of nuance to bridge training that can make it extremely difficult. But most people do it in such a half-hearted, efficient manner. And they're like, "Oh, these exercises are easy," and I'm like, "Let me get my hands on you," because that's the way I roll. I don't want to do things the easy way. I want to create the stimulus for building muscle and strength. You want to do that. You don't want to do easy exercises. So my goal is always, I don't want to do 100 push-ups. Why in the world would I want a push-up that easy? I want to make it so I struggle to do 10 and using leverage and weight shifting to make that happen. So we can do that with bridges and hip bridges quite easily. But I need to take a look at it because little things like just having a subtle pelvic tilt when you're doing your bridges can make all the difference in the world. I've taken people who are like, "Yeah, hip bridges are easy. I could do these all day long." And then in 10 minutes, they're swearing at me, going like, "Dude, I could barely do 5. What the hell?" It's like, well, now you're doing them the hard way. And that's why we have to make sure we have a proper objective set in our minds. Because if your goal is to just do the exercise, you're going to naturally seek efficiency to make the exercise easier. And that's going to make it harder to create the stimulus you want. So by going after the objective of strength or muscular capacity or endurance, we have less of an attention on can I do the exercise and much more to what are my muscles doing? What am I doing with my muscles? That's the thing that conditions them much more effectively. Gale Force 13 coming on in, all imposing, sexy haircut too. Saying, Matt, any tips for healing tendinosis in the biceps? Mostly it's just rest, my friend. I know it sucks, but rest and light repetitive movement as well. If you've got an UBE, one of those upper body ergometers kind of thing at the gym, sitting on that for 15 minutes can help, or doing some punches on the punching bag. That helps. It's just getting the blood flow in those areas. But yeah, it sucks. Tendons and ligaments and stuff, they just don't heal quickly. And there's not a lot you can do to speed it up. There just isn't. I know it sucks, but patience and light repetitive movements are the way to go there. Alex N saying, Matt, what's your experience building grip strength / endurance? How would you approach an improvement plan for a person who does one pull push workout a week? I'm struggling. So most of the time, grip strength does improve on its own with anything that's challenging your grip. You can supplement it with grip stuff. Towel hangs, you can get fun toys like, grip grenades, climbing apparatuses, rock rings, that sort of thing. But usually grip strength just kind of levels itself out when you are hanging from stuff. A lot of times people will be like, I'm struggling with my grip. And then a month later, they're like, yeah, it's fine now because it's the weak link in the chain building itself back up. Usually that's all that's necessary. Sometimes when we're using a new device, that can happen, particularly something with like a rotating handle. So if you've been doing pull-ups, for example, on like a solid bar, and then you got like the duonomic pull-up handles or something that rotate on a strap or a cable, it's just going to be harder because you have a rotating handle. So it's going to be a higher challenge for your grip. And so it's going to be harder for a bit. And because you're getting more challenge in your grip, it's going to stimulate the growth and the strength, and you'll be fine. You can also play around with making sure that your arm as a whole is tight too. So as I was talking about earlier, how the bicep doesn't hold tension very well sometimes when the arm is straight. So if you've got the rest of your arm tight, that can help with the particularly the forearm flexors, because the force is going through your arm rather than being localized just in your forearm. So a lot of times when we've got like one muscle in a chain that seems to be doing all the work, it means the other muscles in the chain are not active enough. So that can help as well. But yeah, see what you can do there. If you're struggling with it, a lot of times when I've got clients who are struggling with grip strength, they'll keep them on a neutral grip kind of approach because it's usually just easier with that. It's easier to set the tension in the back and keep tension in the shoulders. So try managing a neutral grip. Make sure if you're wearing gloves that they're pretty tight. A nice grip training tool that you can use is wear gardening gloves instead of weightlifting gloves because they're looser on your hands. I used to use gardening gloves sometimes just because I didn't have weightlifting gloves, and I'd grab onto a pull-up bar. It's like, why is that so hard to hang on to? It's like it just the way the looseness of it, it wasn't tight enough on my hand. It made it so much harder to grip the bar. So you can practice with things like that, and it's one of those things that will help you with that as well. Alter Malengo saying, oh boy, I know I'm butchering that. I'm sorry about that, my friend. Saying, Matt, could muscle soreness be related to friction amongst muscle fibers? Good question. Because the more reps I do, the more delayed onset muscle soreness I get, even with low intensity reps. Okay, that is a very good question there. And honestly, I don't know about that idea because I know what you mean about that, like the friction kind of thing. Sometimes if you haven't been moving a whole lot, it feels like you're just tearing fibers across each other. I would guess yes, because the delayed onset muscle soreness is an inflammatory response to trauma and damage. So whenever you're exposing your muscles to something either novel or something that is physically damaging fibers, then sure, that can certainly do that sort of thing. Once again, though, the body adapts pretty darn quick. So it should be one of those deals where it's like, oh, I got pretty sore, but after a few workouts, it's no longer an issue. This is also why a lot of times people will have more onset soreness when they're working a muscle through a more elongated position. I've had clients over the years who refuse to do RDLs for that very reason, where they're doing the Romanian style stiff leg. We used to call them straight leg deadlifts, although you don't want your legs straight with that, where you're basically working your hamstrings in a stretched position, like you're bending over and touching your toes. And if you're not used to that, it can make your hamstrings redunculously sore. And they would get so sore and like, dude, I can't walk for several days. Like, I'm never doing that exercise again. And it didn't matter. Like I said, I promise you, it's not going to make them sore anymore if you keep doing it. But that would happen. Is they'd be like, I'm never doing that again. And then a month later, another trainer or they would give it a try and they'd get sore again. It's like, no, you got to stay on it. You got to keep doing it in order to condition your body to handle that kind of force without damaging the muscle. So yeah, if it's damaging the muscle, sure, it can be causing the soreness. But it's usually more due to the elongation of the muscle fibers, or like you said, pushing into that red zone if you're not used to that as well. Joe, good to see you, my friend. Saying, Matt, any tips for hair growth? Nope, there's no way you can have any sort of growth with that. It's a good rule, though. The good lesson to know, to let us all know, because when I started losing my hair when I was 26-ish or so, it's a good lesson to know that we can't control our body as much as we'd like to. My eyesight is going. That's why I have the glass. I can't read your things without that. And everybody learns this one way or the other. You can't be in control of your body as much as you like. Mother Nature is going to take things away from you, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. You're going to get older. You're going to have changes. Some people can go their whole life and still keep a full head of hair. My grandmother was a great example of that. She even had color in her hair when she passed away in her late 80s. It's like, my gosh, Grandma, how in the world are you doing that? Like, I'm 25 and I'm losing my hair. You've got a full head of hair and color. And she didn't even color it. She just naturally had it. But it's a good lesson. It's a humbling thing. We all need to understand that, yeah, the premise of fitness is that we can control our body, that we can control our fate. And it's just flat out BS. Some people are just going to be fatter no matter what they do. Some people are going to be weaker. Some people are going to be slower. I knew mountain bikers when I was racing in college. You're like, yep, you're fairly slow on a mountain bike. And that's never going to change. You can get faster, absolutely, but you're never going to be, as fast as a lot of the folks here. And it's important to accept these things because time is remaining undefeated for us all, my friends. And being able to accept these things gives us the power to control that which we do have power over. Because I mean, I was the poster child of like fighting these things as much as I could. And all it does is just waste a lot of time and energy and money. And it's not a good look either. Being comfortable in the changes as they come is the true sign of strength. John Walsh saying, I'm exercising while watching soccer matches. Very good. I usually do 2 exercises, bicep curls, chasing sumo squats, good, and bicep curls, followed by ab crunches from dip position. I like to mix it up. Pros and cons? Yeah, it's good. 2 exercises back to back. Most of my workouts are usually 2 exercises back to back with maybe an accessory work thrown in or something like that. So I like this sort of thing. I would prioritize a little bit more on the compound pulling movements. I don't know what tools you're using or anything like that, but I would prioritize a row or pull-up style motion over the bicep curls. But I like your sumo squats, very good for adductor mobility. I'm not usually a ab crunch guy. My general rule of thumb is if I can do 15 reps of something on a regular basis, too easy. Way too easy. I have no interest in high rep training. I want to focus on strength. And there's times and places for that sort of thing, but ab crunches, in my experience, they're too easy in most cases. I'll usually use much more of an ab wheel if you have one of those or can get one. I mean, they're like $10 on Amazon and stuff. It's because it's so much more out of ab wheel style training than with crunches, and you get much more in your back too. In fact, that's what I would do: sumo, ab wheel, bicep curls. Ooh, that'd be a good combination. Take that and run with it however you like there. There, my friend. So Filthy Llama coming back in. That is a cute avatar. I like it. Do you have any recommendation to build flexibility? Phew. Oh boy. I can fully bend my legs for squat, but my hamstring is not great. It's quite painful to do leg raises because of that. Yep. So I know it can sound a little contradictory, but keep a little bit of tension in your hamstrings when you're doing those leg raises. Just a little bit, because flexibility, like with strength, is still governed by your nervous system. And so when you're doing the exercises, if your muscles are freaking out, that's where the tightness of the pain is coming from. It's usually due to a lack of stability and control somewhere. So your body is tightening up or creating that stress as a way to try to keep you safe. So if you get a little bit of tension in your hamstrings and glutes, I know it's going to be hard to do. It's going to require quite a bit of control and coordination, but even just a little bit may seriously help you quite a lot in that one. And then it's funny, but muscles that stretch with a little bit of tension are more stable and secure. So your nervous system allows it to happen a little bit more. And that's what I would do, is work on that. Also, make sure you get some tension in your quads too. Because one of your quads is a hip flexor, so you may be overusing one of your quads, but if you get more tension in your quads as a whole, that can create a lot more total stability in your leg, and it might take some of the stress out of that hamstring as well. Yeah, Alex, then following up, do a little research on minoxidil. Minoxidil has about a 20% effectiveness, last I checked. I used to use it back in the early days when I was fighting like crazy. Didn't do a damn thing for me. Pills and stuff. So this is why we've got to recognize that, there is no, works for everybody kind of thing. It's worth working into, and go for the regular minoxidil too. So a lot of like over-the-counter hair growth stuff that's like $80 a box and stuff. It's just overpriced minoxidil. So if you go online, you can find minoxidil, for much cheaper. Just go with the more pure stuff because it's a lot cheaper and probably more effective as well. Best of luck to you though. But yeah, it didn't help me in the slightest as well. You Genetics are a strong thing, my friends. How to add hypertrophy to a program 2 times MMA a week for height gainer and skinnier. So it's standard bodybuilding kind of thing. Refer to the podcast that I did earlier this week. You want to train like a bodybuilder if you want to build up some muscle. Very basic, simple movements. Push, pull, and squat are your bread and butter. That's what you want to be focusing on. Something pushing, something pulling, something squatting. 2 to 3 hard sets, taking yourself close to failure on at least 2 of those sets. And there you go, 2 to 3 times a week. It's always tricky when you're an athlete, though, because you're juggling multiple objectives. You're trying to chase 2 rabbits here. You got performance versus how you're building yourself up. Now, when you are going after a very basic thing like building muscle and you haven't really pursued it very much, you could certainly make good progress as a beginner because your initial ability to achieve a result is always easier at the beginning stages. As you get more advanced, that hill gets steeper and it's harder to make progress. So yeah, I would say don't go with a very high maintenance, highly exhausting program. 2 to 3 times a week, 2 to 3 basic exercises, push, pull, squat, pushing yourself close to failure. I mean, that's what Beautiful Strength that I wrote about is all about. It's that sort of idea. And the programs are adaptable depending on how much training you have. Because you've got MMA there, but some people are martial artists like myself, and they train a couple times a week for an hour or two. Other people are like MMAers and they're training 8 hours a day. So you got to put into account where your energy is being spent. But yeah, keep it to the basics. You don't need anything special because you're a hard gainer. You just keep it to the very basic principles. Cool. Saying, Matt, I tried out 2 sets per workout method, PPL, alternating as per Beautiful Strength, yep, as well as PPL daily. 1 set and only 1 set for each. Is one more effective if weekly volume is the same? Probably shouldn't be. As long as you're consistently challenging your capacity and your volume is roughly the same, it's all going to basically come out in the wash. Where it will make a difference is whether or not it matters to you. So you might have one approach where volume and everything's equated and you're like, yeah, still challenging my work capacity, still getting things done. And the other thing is doing the same, but you're like, it's harder for me to push myself. It's harder for me to stick to the schedule. It's harder for me to get motivated for it. If you're finding more personal friction about a particular approach, then the other one will probably be better for you. Not because it's doing anything different for your body, but because it's doing for you something different for you mentally and emotionally. Because so much of your potential depends on what's between the ears rather than what's actually going on in the muscle. So if you find it's easier to challenge your work capacity to a good degree on a consistent basis with a certain method, you do that method. And that's usually what's going to work better for you. Coles, to piggyback off the MMA question, it's a reason why I struggle with which is better between push-pull leg squats or 1 set daily. Probably neither. Again, as long as you're getting it in, that's the thing. I mean, personally, like I haven't followed a regular workout routine in probably 6 years now. I don't have any sort of approach that is structured. I just get the work in as I can get it in. And if anything, it's been far more effective for me. But that's me. It's the biggest thing about a routine is just can you get in the work on a regular basis? That's like 90% of what makes a routine effective. It's just what can you stick to? And time, this has been shown in the evidence in the scientific literature. What's the most effective diet? What's the most effective workout plan? What's the most effective routine? Whatever you can stick to, whatever fosters consistency. If there's an approach that covers the basic bases, fundamental exercises, achieving of an objective, whatever is more consistent for you is whatever's going to work best for you. And then make sure it's just pointing in the right direction. It's not to say that, oh, I did this strength training workout and I did this other thing. It's just 1,000 burpees a day. It's like now you're going after a different objective. You're pointing in the other direction. But yeah, as long as you're getting the basic objective and you're just getting in the work, you can change your workout 100 different ways. It's going to all come out roughly the same in the wash. And then follows up one more time saying, do you subscribe to consuming 1.6 to 2 grams protein per kilogram body weight for lean muscle maintenance. I don't really, like I was saying earlier about calories, I don't really follow protein numbers or anything like that. Largely because, again, I find it's a pain in the neck. My usual recommendation is I have a protein based diet, if you will. Every meal, I start with protein. I want to make sure I'm getting a good protein source every single meal. Snacks, also protein, nuts, yogurts, cheeses. I'll have a sandwich. Every time I'm eating, I'm like, where's a good source of protein here? Generally, that'll take care of you. Just that, just having that awareness of like, I'm starting with protein and then I'm building on top of that. Typically, that'll take care of you. If you're ever like, well, what if I get more protein? It's like, then add something more to your diet. And again, if it's going to make a difference, it should make a difference, which I know is a profound thing to say, but seriously, we often adopt habits where we're like, okay, I'm now doing this thing that's a lot more work and effort, or gulping down all these protein shakes. Is it working? Well, if you're asking me, it probably isn't. Because again, results should be pretty self-evident. Within a week or two, you should either feel or performance-wise or notice like, whoa, that's a big improvement. And if it's not a noticeable improvement, well, it's probably not doing a whole lot for you there. And so, Magnus, following up, same thing. Do you think about how much protein per pounds of body weight and stuff like that? No, I don't. It's a pain in the ass to count stuff, just flat out. It's usually not worth it, usually not necessary in most cases. Again, if I just like, I'm eating protein, a good amount of protein every single meal, that's probably going to take care of you, because there's so much nuance too to how much protein you need. I needed a lot more protein in my diet when I was a bike racer than when I was lifting to build muscle, because bike racing was way more demanding on my body and my muscular system than lifting was. You ride your bike up Pikes Peak. It's 5 hours of going uphill at altitude. It requires a lot more protein intake than just doing a few hard sets in the gym. I get this one a lot too about tendon strength. Kind of exercises focus more on strengthening tendons. Can't quite see there, like in the biceps and stuff. So anything that works muscles gets tendons, because muscle connects to tendon, tendon connects to bone. So if you got force going through muscle, you got force going through tendons. You don't need to do anything special for tendons. And tendon is stronger than muscle anyway. Tendon is fundamentally the fibrous structure of it is stronger than muscle anyway. So by and large, we don't need to do anything for ligaments and tendons because it's already stronger, many times stronger than necessary. Almost nobody will ever need stronger tendons or ligaments. And even if you do, just strengthening your muscles will inevitably strengthen your tendons anyway. You get tendon ruptures and tears and things like that. But that oftentimes is more just from chronic wear and tear from an athletic standpoint and a lack of the ability to manage force going through the body. So it's like, oh, my tendon snapped in my bicep or whatever. A lot of times it's not the tendon that's going, it's something else along the chain was not engaged properly. Or it's like, well, my tendon blew up. It's like, why? It's like, well, I'm trying to do 1,000 pull-ups a week here. It's like, well, there you go. It's just wear and tear on the body took its toll. It doesn't mean the tendon was inherently weak. It's just, it was too much for it. And could it be stronger? Yeah. Would it have made a difference? Probably not. It probably would have snapped anyway. So he follows up saying, I snapped my bicep tendon Sunday. Sorry to hear that, my friend. That really sucks. I have surgery on Thursday. Yeah. So it's a risk we take. If you're putting stress through your body, stress through your muscles, you're putting stress through your tendons. Usually that'll make it stronger and stuff. But yeah, it happens. It's one of those things that flipping a tractor tire. So usually you got that straight arm going on. A lot of times, like I said earlier, biceps tension in the bicep reduces at strength. So if the tension and the work isn't in the bicep, it goes into your joints. It goes into those tissues. So suddenly your tendon got overloaded because the bicep probably wasn't quite doing its work. And flipping a tractor tire, I don't know what program you were following, but a lot of times that can be a bit of a higher volume activity, especially if it's something new that you're not used to using. And that, and again, there's there's nothing you could have really done to avoid that sort of thing. So best of luck with the surgery. Best of luck with your recovery. It sucks, but yeah, there's not really a whole lot you can do to prevent that in the long run. Like keeping your biceps tense, making sure you got good tension control and elongated muscle, easing into the exercise so that you can do it with control, staying away from failure. Not all exercises are good for challenging our work capacity, folks. You know, good muscular work capacity exercise is something that you can push yourself close to muscular failure with relative safety and not a lot of loss in things like stability and proficiency. So some exercises are just inherently more risky as we get fatigued. And so that's usually what I stay away from when it comes to building muscle. It's like great for strength, great for performance, but I usually do those exercises and say, stay the hell away from failure with that. Save at least 3 or 4 reps in the tank, just because I don't like to take the risk, sort of thing. So I'm sorry that happened to you, Mikhail. It really does suck, but it's one of those weird things that comes for us. I mean, we're all going to get injured. You know, again, it's like losing my hair, my eyesight getting worse and stuff as I get older. Injury is out there. It's going to come for us. And we're going to be safer. We're going to take precautions. We're going to manage things. But at the end of the day, it's going to find you sooner or later. And that's a big injury too. That sucks. That doesn't feel good. I know. It requires surgery and stuff. But if you're in this game long enough, it's going to find you. And no, you can't stop it. You know, I'm a mountain biker. I'm a skier. It's going to hurt me somehow, someday, some way. I don't know how. You know, I ride relatively conservative, not like I did when I was younger, jumping mountain bikes off of back porches and things, you know, but it's going to find you. And we try to be conservative and be safe about things and not take unnecessary risks and stuff. But man, the weirdest things will just get you. It really is. I heard a story one time of a guy who was a strong man, a power lifter, and he tore his bicep tendon just helping his father plant a garden. He just bent over and picked up, you know, something. It wasn't even that heavy. It was like a sack of mulch or something right there. Like, whoop, there you go. It only takes so much. So sorry to hear there. Okay, please keep us updated on your surgery. I hope it goes well for you, and I hope the recovery is swift. So speaking of recovery, I've got to vomadose myself and get my rubber side down for a bike ride before the sun goes down. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming on in. Don't forget, audio of these is available in your podcast directories in the next 24 hours or so. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel. I've got that video coming out about goals that waste your time in fitness and in the gym coming out later this week. So make sure you keep an eye out for that video. And best of luck in your workouts this week. Till then, be fit and live free.